Mobocracy Week, and we again tip of the hat to Jake Jacobs, the wonderful educator and cultural commentator who has given talk spaces all across the country. The name of his book, Mobocracy. And Jake understood, and so many did the great minds of Western culture understand, just how dangerous mobs were to civilization. We've got mobs in the streets, we've got mobs in the schools, we've got mobs in Congress now who are dead set about reordering and remaking this country. Small groups of very loud mobs get their way. They don't think very well. A mob is a dangerous thing because it has no collective soul. Right? It has no collective accountability. People who would never act a certain way by themselves, when you throw them in the midst of 1,500 other people on a street with masks on throwing rocks at police cars, things change. And that's the danger of mobs. So take a look at some of our quotes from Mobocracy. Just one way, before it gets too late, America, you better pay attention to what mobs are capable of. We can't laugh at them anymore. We can't scoff at them anymore. We can't allow liberal cities like Portland and Seattle to underwrite them anymore. The time has come to fight them. David Ignatius, who's a lefty, by the way, wrote, quote, "The framers of the Constitution, the framers hated the tyranny of King George, but they were also afraid of mobs. That's why they put so many checks and balances into our system to guard against the excesses of a government that might be inflamed by public passion or perverted by a dictator's whim," right? Dictators are obvious when you see them. But that mob, public passion, you have every right to protest, but you have no right to burn, no right to attack, no right to vandalize. The American left for the last 3 years have called dangerous and violent left-wing protests peaceful protests, while taking organizations like the Tea Party, whose only offense was being old and white and clean and leaving public parks cleaner than they found them, turning that into dangerous rhetoric. How about this from Calvin Coolidge, a very underrated president in my mind, quote, "The only difference between a mob and a trained army is organization." In other words, these thugs from Black Lives Matter and Antifa and all these other the Young Socialist lobby, all these groups, the only thing that stops them from being a full-blown army is organization. Now, the American army is being taught critical race theory that supports these mobocracies. It's not going to get better. And finally, a quote from the great German philosopher Goethe about mobs, quote, "There is nothing more odious than the majority. It consists of a few powerful men to lead the way, of accommodating rascals and submissive weaklings, and of a mass of men who trot after them without in the least knowing their own minds." That's the problem with mobs. It's all emotionally based. You have a couple of charismatic leaders, and you've got all of this brain-dead following, all this young, restless anger ready to be vented without anybody having given it a second thought.